Hello and welcome back to Star Citizen with the Tough Eggs. Today we are once again revisiting mining, specifically focusing on the giant multi-operator laser extractor, commonly known as the Mole. Now, the Mole is currently the largest mining vessel available in-game. It's a large UEC investment over the Prospector, but offers some serious benefits. Costing 5.1 million UEC, the Mole packs 3 times the mining heads, 3 times the cargo space, increased radar range and higher quality in components. In addition to all this, the interior space is pretty well designed, able to keep its crew of 4 comfortable for long duration mining operations. It certainly feels a little cramped, with equipment lying around and tight living quarters, but Argo's industrialised feel really pours through, with the orange primary colour scheme and the galvanised steel undertones. However, all of these added amenities and components exacerbate the weight of the ship. Even with the VTOL thrusters engaged, the ship doesn't like to hold a stable position when within the gravitational pull of a planet. So, if you're conducting planet-side mining in a mole, it's actually a pretty good idea to land near the desired rock when you wish to mine it. If you do land though, remember, you'll only be able to use the front mining head. But this does save fuel and mitigate any chance of colliding with the surface of a planet prematurely. And even when in space, the Mole handles like a giant flying brick, with a pretty steep difference in forward and reverse thrust. So be careful when accelerating towards a landing pad or location, as it takes 10 times longer to decelerate, meaning this is one of the few ships in the game where an Expanse style flip and burn actually helps out. But when it comes to mining, it is an extremely different animal. There are 3 separate mining heads, all individually controlled, allowing the Mole to crack 3 rocks at the same time. It also provides the opportunity to tailor each mining head to specific duties. To that end, I have 2 recommended loadouts, one taking advantage of a single laser and another requiring the use of 2. So the first build is my traditional mining setup. This is the setup I use most of the time when mining with the Mole. In the first turret, I suggest placing a size 2 Lancet mining head, equipped with a surge module, focus 3 component and lastly the Vox C3. This gives the mining head an 85% reduction in resistance, an 81% reduction in instability, a plus 36% to the size of the optimum charge window, and the surge component gives you that instant 40% increase in the rock's charge level. This way you can comfortably crack any rock in the game. With the first build there aren't any huge boosts to extraction rate or reduced inert material gains, but with the Mole's huge cargo capacity and keeping in mind the 15-minute volatile cargo countdown, you'll probably only mine 1 or 2 rocks maximum. However, this second loadout is more tailored and will utilise turrets 2 and 3. The first Lancet mining head setup will remain the same, and that will be our primarily cracking setup. However, we're going to introduce a Helix 2 mining head in the opposite position. This will be a dedicated extraction head, as this head gives the best overall extraction rate stock. So in order to keep that amazing extraction rate and reduce the inert material gains, we're going to add 1 XTR component and 2 FLTR XL modules. This way we'll get the best of both worlds. And when mining Quantinium it can come in handy, but it really shines when mining non-volatile materials like Bexolite. You'll be able to crack more rocks more often and bring home a higher concentration of useful materials. To further improve the mining efficiency of the Mole, we're also going to replace the stock quantum drive with an XL1 to reduce those travel times. This way you'll reach your preferred destination quicker, allowing you to push that volatile cargo countdown further than you could in a Prospector. Okay, now that the components and basics of the Mole are covered, let's explore some tips and tricks I employ to operate the ship solo. Tip number 1, location, location, location. Firstly, I'm just going to quickly recap my preferred mining locations. Starting from Crew Al1, we have 2 destinations, Her Al3 and Aaron's Halo. Both offer plentiful Quantanium deposits. These are the rocks you'll want to focus on as they offer the best returns. A full Mole can bring home 770,000 UEC if it's all Quantanium. That'll be difficult to do, but it emphasises just how valuable that ore is. So, Referal 3 is a little jump away to a marked location on the map. However, to enter Aaron's Halo, you'll want to select ARGO 3 and stop the jump when you're between 12.7 and 12.3 million kilometers away from your destination. That way, the halo will form around you as you exit Quantum. Tip 2. Radar. Make use of the extended passive radar range that the mole has. The mole can detect rocks from 3 kilometers away. That's an extra 1,000 meters range in comparison to the Prospector. It may not seem like a lot, but allows you to comfortably survey an area a lot quicker. It also means you'll be detecting rocks accidentally, which is always handy. I enjoy acceleration to a group of detected rocks and decoupling as I fly by the area. This allows me to scan the detected rocks and still head towards the second pinged location. Tip 3. Positioning. When mining on your own, you won't be able to both mine and maneuver the ship at the same time. Therefore, it makes sense to park your mole in the best possible location. When doing so, you need to take into account the position and optimal range on your mining head. For the Lancet, that's 60 meters. To properly place your mole, I suggest you approach and keep the rock icon between your legs and the center column. That way you'll always be within optimum range and will present a good angle to all of your mining heads. It's important to position yourself above the rock as all of the mole's mining heads are positioned below the cockpit. Some of them even lower themselves further when in use. Tip 4. Overclocking. Just like the Prospector video previously, I'd always advise overclocking your lasers as it increases the power they put out. You cannot do this from the cockpit, however. You will need to power up a mining turret and overclock the mining head from inside there. It may not display correctly that you've overclocked the mining head whilst you're using the laser, but upon your return to the pilot seat, it should locate in there and display correctly in the power menu that you've overclocked it. Tip 5. Leave your helmet and flight suit on at all times. Sometimes you may wish to remove your helmet, especially now when there's a bug and you're using your O2 even though you're in your suit. But don't do it, especially in this ship. Both the second and third mining heads expose your character to the vacuum of space, so make sure you're buttoned up to save yourself a premature demise. Tip number 6. Groups of rocks. The mole is more than capable of cracking 2 or 3 good-sized rocks and taking them back to a refining station. So if you encounter large amounts of mineable rocks in a cluster, which are very common in Aaron's Halo, then have at them. Further to this, if you're out specifically looking for Quantanium but find a good-sized Bexelite deposit, for example, don't be afraid to stop and mine it. You have plenty of cargo space, so make use of it. Tip 7. Take a companion cube. This is definitely the most fiddly of tips, but it can come in handy. We aren't able to set personal waypoints or beacons currently within the game. Sure, we can drop a public beacon, but that broadcasts your position to the entire server. If you know you're going to spend a good while mining, I would suggest doing this. Pick up a delivery mission, pick a single package from any of the locations, and ferry this little cube of usefulness to your mining station. Spawn your mole, and leave the box comfortably resting on the elevator. This way you have a portable and recoverable beacon that you can drop, and it will remain in situ as long as you have access to the mission and the server holds up. Now, these crates are super useful. If you find a Quantanium rock, for example, you're on the fence about mining it, say it's 25 to 30%, but you're holding out for that larger 45 to 50% rock. This way you can EVA to the rock, drop the crate, and you'll have a permanent marker highlighting its position. You could also use it to highlight a group of rocks you wish to continue mining on your next trip if you haven't been able to mine them all, or if you've already filled your cargo hold. As I've said, this tip is very fiddly, but it can be incredibly useful, as it permanently marks the location from millions of kilometers away. Let's now take a look at an example of the mole in action, cracking rocks, doing what it does best. Here I found a little collection of 7 to 8 Quantanium rocks of varying masses and ore concentrations. I'm going to crack both the 43% and 49% rock. That'll provide me about 60 SCUs of Quantanium, enough to fill the remaining cargo room in my Freelancer Max. Now, the server I am on is a tad janky, so I want to do this as quickly as possible. It also means the cracking of the rock will be a touch more difficult. Luckily, all of the components equipped and the passive debuff on the Lancet of a minus 30% charge time means you can safely account for any issues before they become too catastrophic. So as always, I powered the laser to 100% and activated the surge consumable just to increase the speed on the rock, just to make sure it cracks that bit quicker. There's nothing worse than sitting around in space for 5 minutes trying to heat up a rock. Once that's done, I'm going to drop the power down, but because it's the first crack, you want to stay between really 100% to 75% depending on the rock type. But there isn't really any magic number to stick to, just make sure you're keeping that bar in the green zone so that no materials are wasted when the rock eventually cracks. Once that initial crack is complete, it's time to perform the second cracks and locate the rocks you want to focus on. So in this case I'm focusing a 40% rock. There is 2 100% rocks as well, but I'm starting at 40% as it's the closest, to be honest. So we're increasing the power. Normally you want to judge it on the mass of the rock, so as you can see this is a 1200 mass rock, so it's going to require more power than say a 600 mass rock. So I'm keeping it at about 47%, increasing that charge level, and then I'm going to drop it straight back down by 50%. And I'm going to keep making minor adjustments depending on where the green zone is. If it's starting to drop, I'll increase it. If it's increasing, I'll decrease it, and vice versa. And as there's only 40% Quantanium in this rock, the resistance and instability is lower than it would be if it was a 100% Quantanium rock, so it's being a bit easier for me. As you can see, I'm not really leaving the green zone at any point, and if I do, I just slightly nudge it up or down a tiny bit, and it pops it back into the desired zone. And then in a couple of seconds more, the rock should break apart into 4 separate chunks. Some will be groups of inert materials, others will be 100% Quantanium, but to be honest, with the size of the cargo hold and the mole, sucking up a bit of inert material isn't really a problem. Now, if you've positioned your rock correctly, extracting should be pretty simple, as you'll just have to switch modes. Sometimes a rock can get in the way that you don't want to use, but you can always just break it up and extract the rocks that you want. Now, I've already extracted the rocks from one of the asteroids. I'm now working on the second asteroid. As you can see, I've already got about 39 SCUs worth of Quantanium. That's only going to increase further as I keep grabbing more. Depending on the server, sometimes it won't actually let you extract materials from the rock if it's been a while or if the server doesn't catch up, but for the majority of the time there is no issues. So as you can see, I'm scanning the rocks, and because I'm not in a Prospector, I'm not too worried about how much cargo space I'm wasting. As you can see, I've collected quartz, inert materials and some borates. I'm not going to refine those materials, but I don't mind them being in the cargo hold because it's not going to fill up completely anyway. The only time I would be a bit more concise with what I'm mining is if I find a very large group of rocks with very large masses of Quantanium, and then I might go there a couple of times just to mine all that I can. Whilst mining, also keep an eye on that volatile countdown clock. Note that when you add more Quantanium to the mix, because you've got a higher mass of Quantanium now, it actually extends the time on the clock. Once this is all done and dusted, you can simply climb back upstairs, get into the cockpit and quantum jump to Crew L1, and due to the increased speed on the XL1, really you can afford to spend a lot more time extracting rocks than you could in a Prospector. Now that you've mined all your ore, it's time to finally discuss the refinery process. It is essentially the same as the Prospector. Each process presents an associated cost, time to complete and yield. You'll always want to select the process with the highest yield, so the deciding factors in your decision making should only come down to the cost and time associated with this. Now, if you're a professional miner, you'll want the quickest return possible, especially if you know you'll be playing sooner rather than later, and it's sometimes possible to queue up multiple orders at the same time, so you've got some done and some still working, therefore you're always making money. However, if you wish to maximise your profits, you can use the methods which take longer but cost considerably less. In this instance, I know I'm going to play again soon and take all these work orders in one go. As I'm using a mole, my cargo work order contains considerably more ore and thus will take longer and cost more to refine than a load in a Prospector. So this is going to cost me 70,000 UEC, but I can make that up in a single group VHRT bounty, so I'm not too fazed by the cost. Especially when this transaction altogether will net me more than 1 million UEC. Once that ore is all refined and you've transferred it to your cargo vessel of choice, my choice being a Freelancer Max, it's time to go and sell it. In this case I'm in Area 18 on ARGO, and as you can see I'm making around 700,000 UEC in this one transaction, and this isn't even my full cargo capacity in the Freelancer Max. So mining really is capable of earning really stupid amounts of money if you're good with time management and have the right resources and components mounted. So, to summarise, the Mole is honestly great. After using this ship for a little while, I really can't see myself going back to the Prospector. It detects rocks faster, holds much more cargo, is capable of multi-crew mining, can travel to destinations faster, and the thick shields mean you can take an exploding rock to the face and comfortably survive. Granted, it does have its drawbacks. It flies and looks like a brick, it burns through hydrogen at an astounding rate, and you have to do a tiny bit of legwork when transitioning between mining and flight mode. But you won't get stuck in your cockpit chair, which in itself is a huge positive. The Mole does what it says on the tin, it cracks rocks with expert precision, and the new components really have allowed the ship to min-max its mining efficiency. I would thoroughly recommend upgrading to this ship in-game if and when you can. Thank you for watching this solo Mole mining guide. I have left a link in the description below to my mining comparison charts, providing all the details you'll need to set up your own mining vessel. If you've enjoyed this video or found it a tiny bit useful, feel free to like, comment, or even subscribe, as I greatly appreciate it, and it helps the video reach a wider audience, potentially helping more people. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.